Is Neo Jesus? Or has he achieved nirvana? Those are two very different narratives, right?
Messiah versus enlightened being.
Yeah.
Interesting. Which one would the engineers prefer?
Well, right, yeah. Right.
Which is easier to ignore would be the better question.
Whoa. I don't know. Humans seem to have no problem at all ignoring both of them.
Yeah. Right.
Well, there you go.
We don't really listen to either enlightenment or messiahship. Except when Messiah is selling us something.
All I can think now is like a Messiah vendor having to go selling AutoCAD or something like that.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, there was a lot
Joyce Myers.
So there's a long relationship of people selling stuff to their God. And this has kind of turned into an episode, so I almost vote we just keep talking as a normal episode.
I mean,
Might as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we might as well just do it.
I mean, this can be our reintroduction episode because we haven't posted in so long that this can be, not to say we're starting something new, but...
We kind of are.
Yeah.
Church in space.
My overall goal was to prove you could be a weird nerd at church, and that all these things I was interested in, video games, Marvel, comics, science fiction, aren't actually unrelated to religion and in fact could be intimately related to religion.
Okay.
Right. Or to specifically Jesus, the faith of the church. There was this guy who every year I went to the gathering did this workshop, which was called Being a Weirdo in the Church. And honestly, I imagine this podcast for everybody who attended that lecture. So people who don't feel like they're the normal church folk is who the podcast is for.
Kids that are my age that no longer go to church because of the church as an institution, trying to, not to say bring them back, but make
there
them
could
feel
be a
like
place.
Yeah.
Like you want this to be a haven.
Yeah.
Where nerds can be and feel welcome.
Feel welcome and feel like it's relevant, I feel like not just haven, but feel like all of this actually is terribly relevant. I feel like sometimes I've got to convince people of that. It actually does thinking about this stuff does actually influence how you read these stories,
how these stories were made too.
Yeah, how these stories were made, right?
When they were made.
Well, they're all related. Yes, you can get Buddhism into Star Wars, but you also have a lot of Christian elements in Star Wars.
Oh, and people argue you also have a lot of Buddhism elements in Christianity. So.
Well, that's true. Supposedly Jesus was friends with Buddha, so
My example, I think we've even had this episode, but my discussion is how you view the Matrix theologically makes quite a bit of difference to it actually impacts both what you think the message of Christianity is and what you think the message of the Matrix
is, yeah.
I know a lot of people who are really convinced that the Matrix is this very Christian allegory, and I think they're crazy because I think it's at best ultra heresy. I think it's pure Gnosticism at its best. At worst it's Buddhist. And I think Christianity and Buddhism are theologically very far apart in their orientations. And so it's but how you view that makes a terrible difference to how you actually hear the story being played out in front of you, right? Is Neo Jesus? Or has he achieved nirvana? Those are two very different narratives, right?
Messiah versus enlightened being.
Yeah.
Interesting. Which one would the engineers prefer?
Well, right, yeah. Right.
Which is easier to ignore would be the better question.
Whoa.
I don't know. Humans seem to have no problem at all ignoring both of them.
Yeah. Right.
Well, there you go.
We don't really listen to either enlightenment or messiahship. Except when Messiah is selling us something.
All I can think now is a Messiah vendor having to go selling AutoCAD or something like that.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, there was a lot
Joyce Myers.
So there's a long relationship of people selling stuff to their God. So I guess, I use that example to say I want it for those people, and what I want them to get out of it is no, this theology stuff actually does it's intrinsically interesting and can be fun,
Mhm.
and also terribly actually relevant. This whole God business too.
Commit 50 heresies while doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the fun, but right, like it is terribly relevant even to this media that you're watching. If you miss the theological themes in the first 2 seasons of Daredevil, you've missed half the show,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you miss his interactions with the priest, that kind of thing. If you miss Wilson Fisk's discussion of the Good Samaritan at the end of season 1, like you miss and if you miss why he's misreading that story, you miss why the character of Wilson Fisk is a villain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Daredevil's always been that way too. I mean, even the comics. It's
Right.
Critical. Okay.
And this has kind of turned into an episode, so I almost vote we just keep talking as a normal episode.
I mean, yeah.
Might as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we might as well just do it.
So we only need like another, 15,
15,
20 minutes of saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
But different.
whatever,
I mean, this can be our reintroduction episode because we haven't posted in so long
Mm-hmm.
that this can be, not to say we're starting something new, but
We kind of are.
yeah.
Maybe.
Keith could be an occasional character that
I know.
Keith's episodes could be interspersed over the years,
We have enough
Like,
content that would
he just randomly shows up.
Right.
Yes.
It could be like Gandalf, just in and out.
Oh, that'd be
Hobbit.
kind of cool.
Keith the
like,
Grey.
dial me in someday when I'm down the path, knock on wood, fake wood, particle wood, whatever.
Yeah.
Close enough.
And I hopefully have my own little church someday, and you dial me in. That'd be cool.
With 1,000 congregants, so you can make
Yes.
Dave jealous.
Not jealous. I'm just saying, if any of us
No, he can be my suffragan.
perfectly fine with that.
Oh.
It's one of it's not jealousy because I don't. No.
Not jealous.
Well,
I'm just giving you a hard
I know. I don't actually want. I mean, I was intern at a really big congregation. I don't actually want a congregation that big.
Yeah.
My internship congregation worshipped 600 on a Sunday. It was a
little old May from the hit.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big congregation.
Yeah. It's a lot, right? And even this congregation is much bigger than my first call congregation. And so the megachurch thing, it's I don't even really particularly want that many people, but I feel like we in the mainline churches, mainline Protestantism, have this snobbish thing going. Well, we're not like them,
Yeah.
With our nose held it up. And I'm like, well, when was the last time you attracted 1,000 people? And we're, we could actually learn something in that they have a drive to get people to worship.
Yes, you can always learn something from your enemies.
See, that's what I mean, right? I think that attitude hurts us. I think
I'm teasing.
I know, but people actually think about it that way, right? And
It goes back to the love thy neighbor thing.
Yes,
Right.
that's
We
true.
don't.
yeah,
That's true.
As Americans in this day and age, we don't anymore, unfortunately.
Well, did we ever? Though?
there's been no place on earth absent Jesus himself has been totally loving of thy neighbor.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a total, again, getting back to the total depravity Calvinist thing.
He's turning me into.
Yeah, right. It's never happened until Christ returns, But I would say what has changed is we used to be able to have a common moral conversation,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We would disagree over some of the policy prescriptions in PEPFAR, but we would recognize that the moral aim, at least, eliminating AIDS in poor countries, was largely a good aim.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't even have the same moral framework to have the conversation,
Nope,
right?
we can hardly talk to each other.
Well, right, we can hardly talk, but one side's well, it's wasting money, and I would say it's not a waste if we're
Right.
saving
lives.
lives, right? It's just a totally different moral framework where it's just, I would say we have lost something out of that, out of there.
Would you say we lost the moral framework because it's now one of self-indulgence or selfishness as opposed to outward service?
I think it's maybe not the answer, but a part of the answer. Look at all the Big Brother type games where we have to eliminate everyone else to win the prize.
Oh, yeah.
Or even our commercials. Like if you go to the philosophy, wish I remembered this teacher's name, but I don't. So you'll have to forgive me, Professor from Urbana, that I no longer remember name. But it was this great thing she put out there it was sociology. The Burger King concept in our society, have it your way, not our way, my way, So when you go into Burger King, you expect it to be done the way you want it. So it's like this glorification of the me. You know what I mean?
Glorification of the me. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great book called Bowling Alone, which is like 20 years old at this point, but it's still pretty applicable. The title comes from reflecting on the observation that the United States has more bowlers than it ever has.
Bowlers.
Like bowlers.
Oh, yeah, but less teams.
But less bowling leagues.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. I've not heard of that.
Yeah, and like what that means is that more people are bowling alone.
Ah.
And so, like, the church's membership problems aren't actually only the churches. The whole book is just filled with statistics about the decline of every membership organization, unions,
Yes.
beer halls, right?
Like, what are those, like, special interest groups, like the Moose and the...
Yeah,
The
fraternal order,
organization.
all
fraternal
fraternal...
order of odd fellows.
Right, like all fraternal organizations are experiencing the exact same membership decline that, like, churches are, unions, all organizational stuff is just experiencing it, and churches are just a piece of it. And so, yeah, there is a kind of anti-institutional, I'm on my own.
Well, but at the same time, there's also the complex nature of society itself beating back against that, because we're all now in this post-industrial world, cogs in the wheel, in a certain way, because, like, well, I can't go to these things because I'm working third shift at Arby's, or
Although that's one of the interesting things. The book goes into that about how much does free time actually apply to it. Actually, we were more involved with fraternal organizations when we had less time. They've been doing time surveys for decades now, where people track their time logs, how much free time they have.
Right.
And actually, we were far more involved when we had far less free time.
Interesting.
Which is an interesting kind of backwards result.
Right.
PTAs are another good example. They're declining too, and intuitively you want to say, right, we've got to work so much, we got to do, but actually, like, if you track our time logs, more people have more time these days, but actually when we had less free time, we were more participating in these organizations.
So why do you think, is this like the ultimate end game of American individualism?
I think,
I haven't also become them versus me.
Yeah, I haven't gotten fully to the end of the book, so I haven't.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I know, spoilers. Right? So I haven't gotten quite to the why. You used to have to participate in these things to get information, right? You had to go to PTA to figure out what was happening at your school. You had to go to the Rotary Club to figure out what everybody was doing. You had to participate in the Chamber of Commerce to figure out what business was going on,
Right. Okay.
You had to watch the movie in order to know what actually happened.
You had to go to the movie theater.
Yeah.
To actually, like, see the movie,
Well, and even if you didn't go out, there were only 3 main television networks, so
Right.
everybody talked about the same shows.
Right. There was...
Cultural...
Right. Well, there was more of a monoculture, but also just, like, you had to participate in institutions in order to, like, navigate the world around you. Starting with the television, you didn't figure out what was going on in your local community. You didn't have to go to the Rotary Club. You could just watch the evening news by yourself.
But couldn't you just get the newspaper too?
Well, you could, but even that requires an institution, right? Like, you gotta talk to your mailboy. You gotta pay for a subscription. None of that has to be done anymore with
any kind of in-person.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at books too. If we're talking about dying industries, we're talking about newspaper, we're talking about physical books, bookstores.
Yes and no, though, at the same time, because as there are resurges of things, like look at the Record, that's come back. And there are, like, Living Lutheran went all digital, and now they're going back to print because, well, there might be other things with that too. But look at bookstores. Some bookstores are thriving right now.
Mostly independents.
Right.
Yeah.
Even Barnes & Noble. It's actually...
Right.
They're adding stores, right? Now, on the other hand, my cynical counter to that is that's because their business model diversified and they became also a toy store.
Yes, that's true.
But...
They're a toy store, record store.
Cafe.
Right, cafe, right. And with the decline of Toys R Us, they're now filling this market niche that no longer exists. But anyway, the part I have gotten to is beginning with television. We created a world where you didn't have to navigate your life. You can figure out what goes on at your school without interacting with another human because they send out that email blast.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Email blast. Okay.
You know,
Or like
church too. Actually, you don't actually have to come to church for me to tell you when the programming is.
No, we can stream it.
Right. You can stream it. You can.
like going to the grocery store, even just seeing people like your neighbors at the grocery store. Now a whole bunch of people, including myself, either do delivery or do pickup.
Right. And this book's from 20 years ago, before like a lot of internet trends really caught on. You know, literally published was like 2000, before Google. So like,
Well, look at our shopping patterns. The mall is dead.
right.
You know, except for if you change it into a lifestyle center, then it can kind of balance that to a certain degree.
Mhm.
You turned it into more of an amusement park. You can kind of,
Right.
you know, quasi amusement park. You can convince it still to live. But
Right.
and even the mall, right? The mall killed Main Street. I haven't gotten to the end of the book where it talks about everything, you know, all the other stuff. But I have gotten to the part where I was talking about interacting with culture requires it just interacting less with institutions.
Mm.
You know, interacting with your world requires less interaction with institutions.
So, what does that do to us since we are genetically wired to be social?
Well, you can see the rising anxiety, depression. You know, I would say that's all symptoms of it.
I think we should like go back to the original point, which is like church in space and reintroduction of it. 'Cause this has gone really dark.
We've gone full
No,
circle,
I
boys.
mean, well,
But
Okay.
it still applies,
It
right?
still applies, yes.
Because
yeah.
in that regard, is our goal to also create a sense of community
Right.
to nerddom? Because let's face it, even before all these things you're talking about, Dave, nerds have always felt ostracized.
Right, they've
We have
always
felt alone.
ostracized. Right. Well, and I think this is where this kind of on a meta level, I consider this like a meta level podcast, you know, where we're talking about the podcast.
Mhm.
Are we listening to ourselves talking about the
Yeah, well, it is, you know, and so it's like if we're pulling back the curtain and we're getting rid of the shtick and the game for like an episode, I would say there's a lot of ways institutions can respond to that. And like if we're talking about an underlying goal for the podcast, like I have long thought churches aren't taking advantage of this new technology, but this is a way in which the message of the institution can suddenly get out there. So like meta level, you know, why do we do this podcast as a church, right? It's like we've got this incredible communication technology. We're Lutherans. Like our movement is built on adapting to new communication technology.
Mm.
What? We're Lutheran. We adapt. What?
Well, this literally founded our church, right? Like
The
as much
printing
as
press, yeah.
right, as much as it was Martin Luther, it was I know, but like
What's a quarter century or so?
Okay.
every 500 years, right?
Yeah.
You know, so we're at time for 500 years for another change. There's a sociologist who says the church only changes. Well, the church has a paradigm shift every 500 years. Is what the sociologist says.
So what's our paradigm shift now then? Because we're at the 500-year point.
I think it's the internet.
Yeah.
Just the fact that again the communication, like how important the printing press became, how important the internet is to our daily lives.
Right.
I think that's the
I would
inflection point.
Yeah, I would say it's that. I would say it's the theologian Keith and I are reading at the moment would talk about it as what does it mean to be church in a what's called a post-Christendom society. You know, Christendom was like when the church had like institutional authority, right?
We're kind of back to where we were in the beginning in some ways.
Yeah, right. And we're in a post-Christendom. So what does it mean to live in a post-Christendom? What does it mean to be church when like civil society schedules things on Sunday mornings? You know, that's the easiest example.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. You know, like there was an era in Christendom, even in Christendom lasted up until not all that long ago, like where you wouldn't dream of scheduling something on Sunday. You know, you wouldn't dream of scheduling soccer practice on a Sunday or games on a Sunday or what. It just wouldn't happen, you know.
Right.
My grandmother could remember to the day the first time a movie was shown on a Sunday in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Wow.
Like she had the day. It was so psychologically shocking to her, like Christianity, that like she had like the day memorized.
Wow.
And it's like, think about how silly that is for our world today. But for them, it was really shocking, you know, watching that institutional support of the church from the wider civil society kind of collapse. So the paradigm shift is we've got this new communication, which makes us more individualistic, but can reach a whole heck of a lot more people.
Mm-hmm.
We've got this new situation we're in where, like in the life of this church, for example, you know, there was an era where this church ran Hilliard. quite literally.
This one.
This
Yeah,
one, right?
RELC
Because
itself.
because like the mayor, president of city council, the fire chief, like 2 city engineers.
A couple of the pastors served on the town council.
Yeah, a couple
wow.
of pastors served on city council. Like this church ran Hilliard. And people came to this church then because they knew.
They knew the power players in the community.
Right.
So this was the suck-up church.
Right. Yeah, you would, you could see other people. I'm not saying everybody was unfaithful.
This is where you found out what was going on.
Right. This is where
if you weren't in those other organizations.
Right. And this is where you got things done to plan for those other things, the meeting outside the meeting kind of thing.
And there's we've talked about this, displacement.
Right. There's a
Sense of displacement.
Right. There's a sense of displacement that happens when that's no longer true. So that's the paradigm shift we're kind of all working through on a certain level.
Christians as a whole.
Yeah, Christianity as a whole. I'm a former inner city pastor, and it's one of the aspects I liked about one of the reasons I used to say it was easier to pastor in the inner city was because that old church as center was still alive in a strange way. That concept's kind of dead in our community, but
That's interesting. So is that why you've talked before about the fact that even the drug lords still had respect for you?
right. I mean, right. They would still talk to me, right. I still had authority.
The Dons.
Yeah. I don't know about Dons, but local gang leaders, right. Yeah. And I mean, they knew Sunday morning truce is a joke from The Wire, but it's actually like a real thing. You don't do these things on Sunday morning. Now, even that's beginning to kind of erode at this point. But like when I was in the inner city, that's one of the things I used to say to my colleagues, be like, yeah, I've got a lot of stress and like a lot of things are crazy, but in many ways, I think my job's kind of easier than yours, because I didn't have to navigate, what did it mean not to be church, not at the center, I was at the center. My church built the neighborhood. Everybody knew that.
And it was still pretty much, even though you didn't go to church there, that's our church.
Right, that's our church. And I was everybody's in the neighborhood's pastor. In that census tract, basically, I was everybody's pastor. Whether you went to church or not, that was the deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess all that is to say that's the paradigm shift is what does it mean to not be church at the center anymore?
No, that gives me insight into the fact that people are calling themselves evangelical who have like no religious bent at all now.
Yes.
It's becoming a political title, not a religious.
It's a sociological marker. It's a cultural mark, it's a cultural identifier.
So to Drew's point, does Church in Space do anything to ameliorate or assuage or answer any of this stuff in any way?
Come join us and talk with us.
Yeah.
Nerd out with us.
Or just listen
to our
and think?
podcast.
Well, I listen and hear, right? I mean, St. Paul says faith comes through hearing, right?
Really?
Yeah.
We're going to go with that.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
That's not okay.
With you.
Yes.
Because
Why is that not okay?
he doesn't.
Because I can only hear half the things, Keith. I am disabled.
You hear in mono. Just not stereo.
I mean, I got to put it back in there.
Yeah.
It's the only card I have.
So I guess my point is, this is why I actually, if you listen to not every one of our episodes, but a lot of our episodes, I actually do try and work in some bog standard Lutheranism.
I like bog standard is great.
I do try and say this is why the church believes this, but this is why I try and work that stuff in, right? And it's not just me doing the like stereotypical youth pastor. You've heard about this. Let me talk to you about another guy who,
Oh, wait a minute.
because sometimes I feel like I'm doing that on this show, but the reason I do that is because I do think hearing there's an alternative message. I do think there's an alternative way to think about these things actually makes quite a bit of difference. Just hearing that there is an alternative to, whether it's kind of Zack Snyder's "We'll all be saved by strength, power, and might," or, it's the MCU's "We'll all be saved by how gloriously good looking we all look," right?
J.J. Abrams with lens flares.
Right, or J.J. Abrams, right? We'll all be saved by really bad.
Saved by a lens flare.
Or
Yeah.
saved by lens flare and a lack of coherent ending,
Oh my gosh.
It was just the last episode. There was no resolution.
Right. It's just the last. There's never any ending. Even as we're joking about J.J. Abrams, right? We're in that phase in our lectionary at the moment, right? There actually is a conclusion that we're hoping for.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's wrong. That's why one of the reasons I think the DC universe is bad is because he's
It's a wrong premise.
right. It's the wrong preference. Salvation does not come through strength, violence, and power. And we're not saved by the MCUs. Let's see how many gloriously good-looking people we can get on one screen.
No, although that does bring up philosophical difference between the DCEU and the MCEU, in that Marvel's still is anchored in the concept, even with the great good-looking people, it still anchors itself in the concept that with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
You know, it's not just there. It's not just strength for strength's sake.
Maybe that's why they've succeeded in.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I do think, because I think that at least has a more moral, and it's even not a component that's I think is entirely Christian, but at least there is a moral component to the vision of power there.
Yeah.
That makes it dynamically interesting as a story, whereas I think there is no moral, or I think Zack Snyder gets lost in what his moral. I think he wants to base it in like relationship, like relationship between mother and son and things like, but like I think he gets lost in it because he gets too distracted by power and violence.
Yeah.
And special effects,
Yeah.
I can see that. And I think that's where James Gunn may give us some relief based on.
I think you're hoping for too much with that.
I have a lot of hope for the new getting back on Truly, I have a lot of hope for the new Superman. I like the previews, I at least like a cheesy Superman again instead of a dreadfully serious Superman. Everybody's like, he's just making these cornball jokes. I'm like, have you not read a Superman comic? Like, that's what Superman does is he make,
Watch the animated series.
Right. Like, watch the animated series. Like, he like stops in the middle of saving people to lecture kids on how to cross the street properly. Like,
Yeah, he's the ultimate Boy Scout.
Right. He's a Boy Scout. I'm excited to see that again. But that's why I find even the possibility of that more compelling than the Snyderverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm talking a lot here, but just to say, I think theology informs belief, faith informs all that. And so just hearing that, you don't have to buy into Snyder's vision of superhero-dom. Neither do you have to buy into the MCU's version of superhero-dom.
It's a both and, folks.
So is this why you let me get away with all my heretical stuff?
Almost, yeah, that, and I find questions genuinely good. Douglas John Hall says, faith requires doubt. That if it were not for doubt, we would call it certainty. And we don't call it certainty, we call it faith. And so, like, questions and doubt are good, in my opinion. Faith is trusting the promises, even though you have questions. I try and answer questions because I think questions are good, so.
Okay, so if this is a truly reintroduction episode, I think we need to list some of our best episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one has to be the taxonomy of villains.
Yeah, I was most proud of that episode, I think. So if you're looking for where to start in this podcast, taxonomy of supervillains.
Which is episode 23, by the way, because I have it pulled up on my phone.
Right, episode 23, right, where we compared, that was a fun episode, where we talked about different types of supervillains and then compared them to biblical figures. Yeah, so that's a really good one. I like that one.
Dan Strikes Out, the baseball episode.
Sure.
Dan doesn't like that one. I'm not sure how terribly relevant it is, but I had a lot of fun trying to convince Dan to like baseball. So,
We both did.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those, again, the episodes where, like this one, where it's, hey, we don't have a topic. Let's make the topic in the...
Yes, post-traumatic baseball syndrome.
Space Whales.
Space Whales.
Because we had Kate and Julia on. That was a good one. Is God a Dragon, when we try to overtake the conversation.
Yeah, when you try and set my hair ablaze.
Exactly. And then lastly, I think conference realignment. That was a good one.
Oh, where we tried and
Move to sci-fi, move within the sci-fi universe.
yeah, move characters and things
and
from
then
the sci-fi universe to sci-fi universe.
You're forgetting the best of all. In the Mars game, when the engineer was building
Oh
bridges.
my God! Give me another contempt. Give me a post contempt. Go back, edit that episode. Give me another.
When we played the map game. When we played the map game to build a Lutheran space colony, and I just remember there being a lot of railroad tracks.
Yep.
Too many bridges.
Yeah, a lot
Thanks
of
to the
bridges.
engineer.
Right. We never quite solved that water problem for that colony, did we?
No, it was the oxygen.
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 That's
The
what it was.
oxygen. That's why we had the
Yeah.
guy the statue outside. That we just left him there.
Yeah. Yes.
We've been ambling aimlessly for an hour now. So
Sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds about right. Actually, well, I don't think it's been aimless. It's had direction. Why do we do this? What do we think it's trying to answer meta level in a society?
yeah.
Why do we think that thing needs an answer?
So let's end in the famous words on Blazing Saddles. Let's go do that voodoo that we do so well
Not where I thought that was going.
by Hedley Lamar.
Yeah, yeah. That was not.
Yeah.
I was going to quote a different part of that movie.
Yeah,
I'll just
that's
put it
where you were going with it.
I could quote that movie forever, and none of it would be allowed on this podcast. So I will just say,
That was Richard Pryor's intent.
yeah. Yeah, I will just say this has been Church in Space.
In 3D.
Oi, Vicar.
See you
Once,
later.
once more with feeling there, AV.
No.
Beep.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, Drew.
Did you break a power cord this week?
No, but I'm all charged up for the next time.
All right, let's do it.
Man, I feel wired right now. Beep.